Welcome back to another comparison, boys. Today we're comparing two different Asus laptops, the ROG Zephyrus G14 and the ROG Strix G16. These two are about as opposite as you can get in terms of gaming laptops. The G14 is small and light, and the Strix G16 is not that. So let's find out what each one's strengths and weaknesses are. And if you enjoy these type of videos, please like and subscribe. These two might both be Asus ROG gaming laptops, but the Zephyrus hides that a lot better. The Strix G16 has a loud, bright RGB design that screams, "I play video games." And the Zephyrus G14 is more like a snobby rich girl that prefers a more classy look. The Zephyrus does have this LED slash at the back, which kind of gives it away, but obviously the Strix just gives off a completely different vibe. The second thing you'll notice right away is their size difference. The Strix G16 is thick, heavy, and big. Meanwhile, the Zephyrus G14 is very thin, light, and pretty small for a gaming laptop. They're basically on both ends of the extreme in terms of portability. The Zephyrus G14 is also built a lot better, being made of a full aluminum chassis. While the Strix G16 does have some plasticky parts and just feels less well put together. But it has a lot more stuff packed into it, so it's understandable. We're basically comparing a semi-truck to a Dacia Sandero here.
The Dacia Sandero, it's delayed.
Oh no! Anyway, last week...
But yeah, the Zephyrus is simply built a little better. They might look like they're similarly spec'd, but these parts act very differently. The Strix G16 simply has a lot more cooling available, so its parts can draw more power. The Zephyrus G14's RTX 4070 has access to 90 watts, which is pretty normal for a 4070, but the Strix G16's GPU has access to 140 watts, which is basically the highest wattage RTX 4070 you can get in a laptop. And the Zephyrus G14 has a low-power Ryzen 9 chip, while the Strix G16 has basically a desktop-class processor. The power difference is pretty big, so this should be interesting. Despite their big size difference, they actually have a pretty similar port selection. The main difference is that the Strix G16 gets a full-fat Ethernet port, but the Zephyrus G14 gets a microSD slot. They do have similar chargers though, both being pretty compact. But since the Strix G16's brick is a higher wattage, it's simply larger and heavier. These two both have great keyboards. The Zephyrus G14 does have an RGB backlight, but you can only pick one color for the entire keyboard. Meanwhile, the Strix G16 has per key RGB, so we can do some more fancy animations. This apparently varies per region though, so not every model might have this. It also has these translucent keys, which I think looks really cool. They both have very similar feeling keys. But the Strix's keys simply have a bit more space to work with, so they have a slightly longer key travel, which feels a bit better. They both have sizable trackpads, and while they're both made of glass, the one on the Zephyrus definitely feels higher quality. They both do have a satisfying click, but again, the Zephyrus's trackpad just feels a bit better. Their displays also differ quite a lot. The Strix G16 has a 16-inch IPS display, and the Zephyrus G14 has a 14-inch OLED display. The 120Hz display on the G14 is nice and smooth, but it's nothing compared to double the refresh rate at 240Hz on the Strix G16. Some people might not be able to tell the difference, but to me the Strix G16 is way smoother. They both get bright at 500 nits, but they have a slightly different coating to them. The Zephyrus G14 has a glossy coating with an anti-reflective layer, while the Strix G16 has a matte coating which is quite a bit better at hiding reflections. The colors on the G14 are noticeably better because of this though. And of course, it has an OLED display. OLED is still the undefeated panel technology in my opinion, and it's no different here. The IPS on the Strix G16 is very good, but it loses hard against OLED's high contrast, perfect inky blacks, and amazing colors. And of course, OLED doesn't have any backlight bleeding, which is perfect for use in darker areas. The display hinge on the Strix G16 is better though. It's a bit tighter than on the Zephyrus G14, so it doesn't wobble around as much. Now the Strix G16 is quite a big laptop, so it should have the space for good speakers. Yeah, sure, the speakers on the Zephyrus G14 are good, but you can't beat physics, right? The winner here is gonna be pretty obvious. I'll just play it for you. The Zephyrus G14 has more bass, it gets louder, it sounds clearer, it has surround sound, I don't have to continue, right? The Zephyrus has the better speakers. This is what the microphone sounds like on the Asus ROG Zephyrus G14. This is what the microphone sounds like on the Asus ROG Strix G16. Now let's see some raw performance by running some benchmarks. In Cinebench R23, the Zephyrus gets absolutely touched by the Strix G16. In the multi-core test, it's literally almost double as fast, which is just crazy for a laptop. In 3D Mark TimeSpy, it should be interesting to see how much faster that higher wattage RTX 4070 is compared to the G14. And it did quite a bit better, but not as much as I hoped. And once again, the CPU score for these two is not even close. Now let's see how they compare in some games.
You fuck you, man. Huh?
Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man.
Mate, I fucking just dropped into the shit show. Oh my god! I literally dropped onto one of them fucking tanks, oh man.
Sending in an eagle!
Dat bestaat helemaal niet. Ik weet niet als een hond die verdrinkt.
So the Strix G16 is quite a bit faster, even in gaming. That 50 watts extra for the RTX 4070 doesn't do a whole lot in terms of GPU performance, but we knew that already. The RTX 4000 GPUs aren't very good at power scaling, but the i9 in the Strix G16 beat the Ryzen 9 in the Zephyrus G14 by a mile. And that performance difference is pretty obvious in CPU-heavy games like Rust or CS2. So the Strix G16 absolutely wins in terms of performance. You know where it doesn't win though, like at all? In battery life. I ran the same test on both laptops. YouTube playback with their displays at 500 nits and 60 Hz, with both of them in iGPU or Eco mode. The Zephyrus G14 lasted almost 10 hours, which is very good for a Windows laptop. The Strix G16 didn't even manage to get half of that. While it does have a way bigger battery, the i9 in here sucks a lot of power, which makes it suffer in terms of battery life. And more power use also means more heat and more noise. The Strix G16 is quite a bit louder than the Zephyrus G14 while under load. And it also gets a bit hotter, but not by a lot. Both of their CPUs reach 95 degrees in multi-core workloads, but the Strix G16 actually stayed cooler during single-core stuff, like during gaming. Now because the Strix G16 is so much bigger, it also has a lot more space for upgradeability. The Zephyrus G14 has about as many upgradable parts as a Tesla, meaning basically nothing. You can replace its SSD and Wi-Fi card, but it has soldered memory, which really sucks. But the Strix G16 has 2 RAM slots for upgradable RAM, 2 M.2 slots for SSDs, and a Wi-Fi card slot. So you can spec the absolute hell out of it, making it a beast of a workstation. Now these two laptops are very similarly priced, depending on the spec of course. The RTX 4070 model with 32 GB of RAM of both are basically the exact same price, but the Strix G16 has higher spec models as well, sporting up to an RTX 4080 or even 4090. Of course, those are a lot more expensive though. The 16 GB Strix G16 is a bit cheaper, so it really depends on which model you're looking for. So which one is more worth it? Well, it really depends on what you use your laptop for. I wouldn't really call the Strix G16 a laptop. It's more like a portable workstation PC. It has amazing CPU performance for a laptop, like actually desktop class. But it's very heavy and can't really be used comfortably on your lap. Meanwhile, the Zephyrus G14 is very portable and it still performs really well, only being a little bit slower than the Strix G16. It does the laptop stuff a bit better, so think audio, fan noise, and portability. Not to mention, this thing can actually be used as a laptop. So, if you need to perform very heavy tasks in one place, but want something more portable than a desktop PC, get the Strix G16. But if you need a more portable machine that does everything else pretty well, get the Zephyrus G14. Everybody has different use cases, so you need to look at what's important for you. Pretty easy, right? I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.
Я... Ух, ебать!